Welcome back. I am back in Puerto Rico, the continent of Puerto Rico. And Pete will be joining me shortly on today's Rebel to discuss some of the machinations, you like that word, that are going on in the market today, as well as sports. And the president's polling numbers are even higher outside of America because of what happened in Venezuela. All that and more on today's Rebel's Edge.
Capturing Nicolas Maduro and transporting him to a U.S. federal prison to face charges, Trump announced the U.S. will run the country until a safe transition is possible. But what if the U.S. never leaves? The Petro reset breaks OPEC's global price monopoly. By seizing Venezuela's 300 billion barrels of oil, the world's largest reserves, the U.S. crashes gas prices to a historic $1 at the pump. This logistics miracle slashes shipping costs by 70%, cutting the price of groceries and goods by 30% overnight. Inflation vanishes as the energy tax is deleted, triggering a surge in domestic manufacturing. The currency collapse is solved by replacing the bolivar with the US dollar, stabilizing costs while zeroing savings. As a migration reverse brings 7.7 million refugees back to rebuild $400 billion in decaying infrastructure. The Southern Command expansion dismantles gangs and rebels, cutting crime by 90% as Venezuela becomes a de facto 51st state. This superpower pivot evicts Russia and China, freezing $60 billion in debt and granting the U.S. total military and economic hegemony over South America. After capturing Nicolas Maduro.
Yep.
That's a something.
That's a something, Pete. And you and I talked about it with Connell McShane on News Nation on Monday. Yeah. And that's why I wanted to show you guys in macro today, Pete. I wanted to show everybody this chart because basically the approval rating, because people were saying, oh, you know, the United States is taken over, they're going to own the country and all that. These are the approval ratings in Costa Rica, pretty damn close to Venezuela, right? In Chile, in Colombia, in Panama, in Peru. Pete, basically it's Costa Rica 87% approve of the president going in there and arresting Maduro. I mean, Argentina's 61%, Peru 74%. These are pretty big numbers. And by the way, his polling numbers in the U.S. went up too.
Yeah, it's pretty impressive. Matter of fact, John, the other day you and I, like you said, we were on with Connell McShane at News Nation, and the two of us, that was a lot of fun. You were in studio, I was through a Zoom. But right before we went on, a local gentleman who's a really good friend of mine, Dan Barrero, was on talking about what's going on in Minnesota, not necessarily, although obviously with what was going on, he was a combination kind of a player because he was talking about Venezuela, but he was mostly talking about walls and what's going on here in the state of Minnesota as far as the governor. So a lot of conversations out there, but shout out to him because he was on maybe 20 minutes before we were on that show too.
That was pretty cool. You're right. Yeah. Well, what do you got for the VIX today, Pete? Are people, you know, with the Dow down slightly and the NASDAQ up, and I'll say the same thing, slightly, but the NASDAQ is solidly in the black. What do you got for VIX readings so far today?
Well, it's pretty interesting, John, because quite honestly, the VIX is moved up a little bit, not a lot, but it's been hanging around, call it 15 for the majority of the day. Is that a bad thing? No. Does it make sense? Yeah, because we've had some movement, some very serious movement to these record highs. Today, a little bit different day. But that oil volatility index, the OVX, John, is something else that I would just point out, just based upon everything with Venezuela and some of the talk about the prices of gasoline as well as oil itself. But that's right around 32, which is smack dab in the middle of the last month range, which is 28 to 38 for that OVX. So there we sit at 32. It's up a little bit today, but it's interesting, and I would encourage people to keep an eye on the OVX as well, especially what's going on globally right now with crude oil.
Well, and then, folks, we've got our prediction market, which we have a new leader, Pete. We've got Discord has moved up to the #1 slot for IPO before 2027. It's a 90% shot that they will indeed come public this year.
Huh.
Again, it's one of the great things about these prediction markets, Pete. People can put their money where their mouth is versus just saying, oh, how did this poll go?
Yeah.
Oh, the consumer confidence poll came out poorly, or, you know, this or that. And instead, this is people put their money. You saw on that graphic, I think there's like 1.3 million on this already. So if that one comes public, somebody's only going to make 10 cents if they bet 90 on it right now, Pete, because that's pretty much a sure thing, just like when we see the Fed tool over at the CME group, and when they go to 90% chance of seeing a Fed rate cut or a Fed rate increase.
Absolutely.
Well, let's dive into our first unusual activity for the day today, Pete, because we have two. And the first one is this one, VTYX Biosciences. And as you guys can see on the screen there, on the 4th of December, somebody came in and bought 5,000. That represents 500,000 shares, because every option's for 100 shares. And they came in to buy those for $1.31. Just a little bit later, they came in again to buy 5,000 more, Pete, of the same strike again. And this time they had to pay $3. It gives you an idea that, you know, when the stock moves up a buck, those options moved up by $1.70. People are getting more and more bulled up about that. And then today it's up 36%. And the reason it's up there is because of what Pete's going to tell you guys about Eli Lilly.
Yeah, Lilly seems to be in advanced talks right now, John, about an acquisition here. And so that makes it pretty interesting. Stock's up, what, 38%? It's been even a little bit higher than that. Solid balance sheet, which is not something that is usual when it comes to these biopharmaceuticals. But in this case, they do. They've got a very solid balance sheet, and they also have the pipeline. And the pipeline itself is something that I think that that's attracted for Lilly at this point in time as well. So it's interesting for sure, John, to see what kind of a move in those options. What's really curious is they did the same option as you said, but also same time of day, same number of options that they're buying. Really is a pretty interesting thing to see that just sitting there right in front of us or whatever, the idea of this thing and what a move that it's made. It's been absolutely incredible. It got up and over that 15 level. It's been as high as 25, but we don't know what the level is going to be, but they do have that pipeline. As I said, they've got 4 different therapies that are in phase 2. But this one, this certainly is something that I think Lilly's going to say, hey, we're basically stealing this thing. Because from what it looks like, they are, especially at depending on what the level is that they're going to pay, John. But there sure is a lot of consumed folks out there that are saying, hey, this is going to happen. This is a deal. And it sure looks like it is.
Yeah, well, and certainly seems, Pete, like Eli Lilly is trying to act quickly and paying enough of a premium so that they end up with it. Because obviously at 30 to 50% premium, like we're seeing in this one, it's basically making it tougher on anybody else that wants to come in and fight them for a piece.
Yeah.
All right. How about MBLY, Pete? MBLY. This one, huge gains initially, Pete, initially. And why do I say initially? Well, because they didn't last long. MBLY is going to buy basically a competitor to Elon Musk's Optimus, and they're going to try to build that out to compete. And I'm not saying there will only be one. There obviously won't be. There'll be many dozens and dozens of robotics companies. And not just robotics like in building cars and trucks, but true robots, walking around robots like we see in China and like we see with Optimus with Elon Musk. But that initially spiked shares up about 15%, Pete. And then, as Rosanna Dana would say, tragedy struck. And now it's only up 1%. Have you figured out why yet, Pete?
I really haven't, John. I mean, what it looks like, maybe somebody out there thinks that they're paying too much. I don't know. $900 million is what what it seems that the number is that they're coming up for this startup, this humanoid robotics like you were talking about. I'll tell you one thing that's really interesting about MBLY, though. their cash to debt is unbelievable. $1.6 billion, John. The free cash flow, $600 million. The stock just doesn't seem to be able to hold on to moves or make moves very often. It made a move early with it when it was up 15%. But like you were just saying, it's come back down about 1%. So this is a stock that over the last year is down 37%. I think that there's something that somebody sees something in here that's putting pressure on them. But I'll tell you what, it seems to me that they are going to be one of those that it's going to be the leader in this whole physical AI space that people are talking about. MBLY 3.0, as they're saying. So I don't know. I think this is still a great opportunity, and I like what MBLY is doing. I think it makes a lot of sense that they would put these two things together. So I like the acquisition. I don't know if it's overpaying or not, but I'll tell you what, they got plenty of money, John. So they're in a really, really powerful position when it comes to the robotics and the human side of things. All of that, I think that they are positioned well, but for whatever reason, they just can't seem to hold on to anything when it goes to the upside.
Well, 2 years ago, folks, back in December of 23, the stock was in the $44 range. Today, with the stock at 12, I would be betting with Pete that I think it's got a lot more upside potential from here, Pete. Mm-hmm. Not that it has to return to 44, folks.
Right.
But there was a reason that the stock was trading $44, and obviously self-driving vehicles and things like that, full self-driving, that is also something that really MBLY was at the forefront for that, but they've been joined by a lot of competition. So I think that's what it is, Pete, is that competition. And I think overall, this is going to be a company that if you're buying it between 10.5 and call it 12.5 or so, I think you're going to be happy with it on a long-term basis. I don't know if it pops like that, but I think we could see 20 by June. So I'd say that's a reasonable bet.
Yeah.
Intel, they at one time had something going on with MBLY, and Intel is up big because of a little something that goes on in Vegas every year, Pete, known as the Consumer Electronics Show. And they are committing themselves again to being part of the gaming platforms that are out there, because that's really where Intel always launched a new chip out at CES, and they talked about what it would do. And 6 months from now, you guys are going to love this. Everybody's going to want our chip. But unfortunately, NVIDIA and a bunch of others stole their thunder. Today, they are touting this new chip that they're going to have for gaming and the computer to go with it. So this is why the stock is moving up pretty fast today, Pete. And this is another one that we had unusual activity in when it was in the 30s.
Yeah.
When there was end of December. So basically just a week ago, this thing, 10,000 of the July 50 calls trade. Now that's usually too far out of the money for me or for Pete to be buying it, folks. But we like buying the at the monies. And if you look at that, the stock is up almost $7 from this trade a week ago, Pete. So I like the way that works. And as always, folks, scan that QR code on the broadcast and you can sign up for any of our services.
Yeah, it's an amazing thing, John. I think they've done a great job at the CES. When you look at the stock, I'm looking at it right now. We hit all the way up to 44.50 today. So not such a bad run to the upside. And as you were pointing out, this unusual option activity wasn't all that long ago. We're talking about just a little over a week or so. So are they positioning? They want to see, obviously, if they can position themselves back in the gaming world. Processors, platform, the whole thing, hardware, software, the whole thing. They're very excited about what they're doing. And I'll tell you what, it puts them again directly in competition with NVIDIA and AMD. And this is a category where I think Intel probably has a great opportunity to be extremely competitive. And I think that's why we're seeing the reaction out of the stock. And by the way, we have been seeing more options to the upside buying in Intel over the last, call it maybe even 2 months, 3 months, something like that, John, where they're just going out in time. Matter of fact, a couple of months ago, I think they were going all the way out to March of 2026. Now, as you were talking about with that unusual option trade just a week or so ago, you're going out, you know, even a little bit further. So there's a lot of activity out there. A lot of people, I think, are looking to the upside for Intel for a big recovery. We haven't seen it in a long time make these kind of moves, and it's starting to look like it did in the old days, John, where Intel's actually getting pretty competitive. And I think this is a good move by them to get themselves back into the gaming world.
All right. Well, let's talk for a sec about Skyworks, Pete, because Skyworks is a company that basically it's analog and mixed signal semiconductor company. Again, easy for me to say, but they have a lot of uses in aerospace and high tech. And the company has been falling pretty hard, Pete, because you look at it back in November, beginning of November, end of October, it was $80 a share. Today it's 58 and it's down 12%. And a lot of people are saying, you know, well, it's weak guidance or it's lingering analyst caution. Loop Capital cut their price target from 75 to 65 just recently. So there's a lot going on that's not so good over with Skyworks. And even though they've got CES also, where they're unveiling cool stuff out at CES, it's not been enough to lift the stock, Pete.
No, and you know that they maybe are finding themselves in a spot where the 5G world has matured to the point where maybe there's not that much upside to it, John. And maybe that's maybe the same thing having to do with, you know, they have a huge presence when it comes to smartphones and so forth. And, you know, if they feel like, and it looks like some of these analysts, because of what I'm seeing out there, and you were just talking about what Loop did, which is cutting it from 75 to 65, it kind of makes sense. There's also quite a few out there, the analysts out there, John, that have a hold on it. Not a buy, not a sell, but a hold. And I don't know, that doesn't get people very attracted to this thing either. So there's a lot going on here. Like you did say, though, there was some guidance issues that were on the outlook that go back to November when they had their earnings and so forth. And that was something that I think is not very good for the stock. That's why we were seeing that big push down from $80 to down to where it is right now. Is this a risk off kind of a stock right now for 2026? It feels that way, but I'll tell you what, if they can get anything positive out there, John, it could be somewhat of a game changer. They've got to prove to everybody that they still have cutting edge and they're not sitting there waiting for the 5G world to continue to go and maybe be the catalyst. They need something else as a catalyst. I'm not sure exactly what it is, but unless they can find it, they have a big problem, I think, right now.
Well, it's got to get back above 60.
Yeah.
Otherwise, they do have that big problem Pete spoke of, because they went down and tested that level this morning and then blew right through it, Pete. Now, they're trading 58.5. If they get back above 60, then I'll say that's a nice recovery and a support level. But otherwise, I'd be a little worried if I had a lot of this stock, which luckily I do not. All right, folks. Well, we've got another webinar coming your way on Thursday. And Pete and I will be on it along with the CEO, Mark Lopresti. And that particular webinar is going to be all about our battle plan. And we just got a new thing for the battle plan, Pete, because we already knew Venezuela would be part of the discussion, whether it's defense stocks, whether it's energy stocks, infrastructure, whatever it might be. But now we've got, the news just hit, Pete, that Mark Rubio, the Secretary of State, is going to meet with Greenland next week.
Oh, yes.
So, I mean, you can't stop this guy. You know, when you've got a president that doesn't sleep and he's always sitting around and by the way, folks, I think what we did I'm saying this, not necessarily Pete, but he probably agrees. I think what we did in Venezuela was exactly what should happen. This was not a duly elected leader. We're not talking about overthrowing something in Greenland. But in the case of taking out a narco-terrorist who happened to make himself the dictator of Venezuela, that's the way I look at it, and the way 67 countries around the world looked at it prior to us going in and snatching him out. Now, one of the reasons is China, because they get 6 or 7% of their energy from Venezuela. Now it's a lot more expensive for China without that access. Second off, Greenland is where almost all of the Russian fleet, except for the submarines, comes by there, because you can't go north of Greenland because you're going through ice. If you go south of Greenland, that's why we have a base over in that general area. But I think the president wants to make sure that we're plenty beefed up and ready in case something happens. So that'll be interesting. And if you guys want to join us for a battle plan, again, not to attack Greenland, but your investment battle plan so that you can have positions on that could profit, or positions you might have on that are going to go south if certain things happen, you should sign up for our free webinar Thursday, 4 p.m. Eastern. And as always, if you guys sign up, we send you a copy of the video for free. You don't have to give us a credit card, nothing. Just sign up. We send you a link to your email, and then you can join us. It's that simple. Thursday, 4 p.m. Eastern time. And again, if you can't be there live, you still get the video.
Yeah.
All right, Pete. I know we got one of your favorite guys because Pete and I love talking about, and we'd probably love talking to, Pat McAfee.
Yep.
Well, here's Pat on his show talking about one of his favorite guys, Mendoza, Fernando Mendoza, Heisman Mendoza, as he's also known. Let's listen to Pat.
I think not a lot of people understand. You were running a little bit more there in the Rose Bowl. You're tall and you are thick. Pause, obviously.
Yeah, I would say with a fantastic offensive line, really haven't been able to see my run game too much. Coach Owens and the strength staff here got me up from, I think, 205, 210 to now a low of where I need to weigh in weigh-ins every week at 225. I've been able to put on good weight where I'm able to run and I'm able to still be fluid in my movements. Whenever the team needs me to run, I can always run. And so my mindset's always, every play is essentially a puzzle for me. I have 5 or 6 options with throwing the ball, and then my 6th or 7th option, hey, let me just run the ball or throw it away. Sometimes when, there's a 3rd down and 3 that we had that was pretty crucial, they bluffed cover 0, was able to tell their bluff, going through my progression, wow, no one's there. Alabama did a great job. There's a reason they're in the college football quarterfinals. Like, they're great. At that point, hey, I got to put my body on the line, I got to maneuver something, and I got to go get the first down. And so whatever my team calls on me to run, I'll always be able to run.
Oh my gosh. Just listening to you frame it as a puzzle. Because you're a nerd. You're a football nerd as well. So not only are you 6'5", can move, can spin, you're also a football nerd. It being phrased as like every play's a puzzle basically, and then in real time you're just, okay, yeah, Queen's Gambit on the ceiling. We're figuring it all out.
Oh, McAfee's the best, man. He really is, John. I swear to you. Yeah. Early on, I don't know what I thought, but over time, it's just grown on me and grown on me. And by the way, he is game day. I mean, there's no question about it. He is game day. He makes game day. Obviously, Herb Street's phenomenal, and the rest of the group are great guys. But Pat coming in with all that he brings, especially that kicking thing and all that, and all the money that he puts out there. That show is a must watch every Saturday during the football season. No doubt in my mind, John. None.
Yeah. And where he's exactly right too, Pete, is this is a kid that got into Yale.
Yep.
Because that's where he was going to go until at the very last minute, Cal came in. And Cal Berkeley, our dad played there. I went there, but didn't matriculate out of Cal, but our brother Paul did. And it is a tough school to get into.
Oh, yeah.
And I'm not patting myself on the back. I got in because I was a football player. But this is a really smart guy.
Yeah.
And I think whatever team gets him in the NFL next year, Pete, is going to instantly be a team we should watch. And maybe even a team that, well, for sure now, a team that has a new coach. Because the most likely team to pick him up is, of course, the Raiders, unless they trade that pick, Pete. And if they trade it, they're stupid.
Right. Yeah. Although they need that offensive line, John, because the one thing the Raiders do is they allow quarterbacks to get the crap kicked out of them back there just each and every year. And, Pete Carroll is gone, so we'll have to figure out who's going to be there. Is it a offensive-minded coach? Is it a defensive-minded coach? All those things. There's a lot going on, I think, when you look at the NFL and all the changes. But so I've got something for you, John, that I think is kind of fun. So college football, we talked about the portal the other day. We talked about 4,500 people going into the portal. 4,500 going into the portal. Who are the top 3? Yep. Well, you could probably guess. So I'll start off with this one since we just had that video of Mendoza, right? Mendoza's going to be in the draft. The Raiders most likely are going to take him in the first pick unless something like you just said happens. But so they've got to replace him, right? Well, who do you replace him with? Maybe it's his brother. Maybe it's somebody. I don't know who it might be, but they did just sign a kid named Josh Hoover, John. Now, Josh Hoover is a 4-star guy out of TCU, so they got their quarterback. They also signed a receiver. They also got a tight end. They also got, you go through this whole thing. They got one of their wide receivers is a big kid out of Michigan State that decided to go over to Indiana. That's going to be cool. They got a bunch of edge rushers. You always could use those things. Couple safeties and a running back out of Boston College. So pretty strong. And so far they're rated in the top 3. Here's the interesting ones though. Penn State. Penn State's got 19 transfers from Iowa State. Now, why is that? Well, because the coach who's now at Penn State was the head coach at Iowa State. He basically just said, all right, you guys are all going into the portal here at Penn State. Great. See you later. I don't need you. I got these 19 guys that are coming that I already know about and like, and we've got that. And so it does make it a little bit easier for him, John. And he went, in a big way. They have most of the offensive line, wide receivers, quarterback, all of them. They got 2 quarterbacks already at Penn State. They're going to be fighting over things. And then you've got Oklahoma State. 14 transfers coming from North Texas. So there's 28 Oklahoma State guys that want out, and now they're bringing in these 14 from North Texas. It's just a transformation of some of these schools. It's unbelievable. Now you're ripping away, which, makes sense, from places like Iowa State, from places like North, Texas and all the rest of it. But this portal has gotten out of control, John, in a big way. What do you think about this? How do you think about the fact that these guys, when the coach leaves, these guys all follow? I mean, it makes sense, right? He already knows what he's got with those guys, and he knows that some of the guys are going to leave. So it makes sense. But, boy, college football has really changed in the last year, 2 years, 3 years, 4 years. It's unbelievable what's going on.
Yeah, it's totally, Pete. It's a brave new world.
Yeah.
And the fact that they've made, what used to be under the table now on top of the table, and big piles of money on top of the table. Like you said, Sam Leavitt, this was the Arizona State quarterback that beat up on the formerly highly respected Texas Tech. Out of nowhere, all of a sudden he beats them. So Sam's in the portal. This guy, Damon Williams Jr., he played at Washington, Pete. And I'm sure Pete saw this, folks. But this kid was getting, I think about 100,000 in NIL, Pete. They just signed him to $5 million. $5 million. And he went into the portal. So in other words, Washington somehow, Pete, pulled $5 million out of their backside and said, here you go, kid. And then he jumps into the portal. Now, he didn't get the money yet, folks. That's not the way this works. But he has, and I'd never seen this before, Pete, he has a do not contact on his portal posting. So I didn't even know it existed, but apparently it's basically saying, I've already got a school.
Yeah.
I've already got somebody who wants me bad. And I'm very curious who that is, Pete, because again, Washington was willing to give him $5 million. What is it Alabama? I mean, is it LSU? I mean, because they keep saying the kid from Michigan's going to leave Michigan and go down to LSU. Is he?
Yeah.
And does this guy really want that guy, or does he want that guy? Again, this is craziness, but most of these high-paid kids, including Shadur Sanders, who is making as much as $7 million a year, most of those kids aren't going to make that when they get to the NFL. No. Not for 3 to 5 years.
Right.
Because they'll sign them to a rookie contract for 3 and an option on a 4th year. So, if you sign the kid, and I think it's a max, Pete, I'm not positive, but I think it's like a max of $25 million over 4 years, because with that option year in there. Wow. The kids are saying, I'm sticking with this NIL for as long as I can.
You're right about that. Well, let's break it down again. This is the second part of this whole thing that I think is so interesting. But you've got the NCAA versus the NFL. And what does that really mean? Well, the NFL, John, the lowest you can get is $850,000, right? Which still is a lot of money, but in relative terms to what you were just saying and what I'm going to tell you next is kind of amazing, really, what's going on in this whole world of the NFL versus the NCAA and what kind of money that these guys have and what are they spending. So here's what the averages are right now in college football, the NCAA. Average quarterback is somewhere between $1 million and $4 million. Now, like you were saying, there are 5 and 6 and 7 millions out there as well. Arch Manning is a great example of this whole thing, right? I mean, there's some real dollars that are being spent out there, but on average, $1 million to $4 million for a quarterback. For a wide receiver, $250,000 to $1 million. Offensive tackle, $500,000 to $1.3 million. A D-line edge rusher, $500,000 to $2 million. And then all of a sudden you get over to the other side of the ledger and it starts to get a little bit worse. Running backs, 400 to 900, linebackers, 200 to 500, tight ends, 200 to 900. But it's still a hell of a lot of money, John. But I'll tell you, it's absolutely insane how this is just inflated up, because these guys are, as you said, they're making more money than what you're going to make in your first, second, third year in the NFL, because you've got that rookie contract, which is brilliant by the NFL. But at some point, that's probably going to change too, is my guess. They're going to probably start lifting that thing up a little bit. But it's just gotten to be crazy town, John. How do these schools manage this? How do they possibly get enough money to compete at the next level? And it's just amazing. What do you think? I mean, if you and I were GMs right now, we'd have to be out there knocking on doors, man, going, hey, what do you think about maybe giving us a couple of $1 million? 5, 10, what can you give us?
Well, I would say this, Pete. An NFL franchise right now will run you between, on the low end, Pete, what do you think, $3 billion?
I'd say 4.
And on the high end, 12.
Yeah.
But, and Jerry Jones ain't selling.
No.
So if you figure, okay, well, I could make, let's just even use a low number like a 5% return. That's $400 million in opportunity cost, tying up $8 billion. So I think some of these guys, like that guy at Texas Tech, who's a billionaire, who fronted up all the money for them, or at least a lot of it, they could look at it, Pete, and say, you know what, for $50 million a year, yeah, I don't own an NFL franchise, but I am the big dog here. I'm the guy signing all these kids to play and everything else, and he gets to act like and feel like perhaps an NFL owner without putting out the $8 billion. I was wrong about one thing. I'll correct myself real quick, Pete. I forgot how much the salary cap had jumped by. Yeah. So now, as of last year, a first round max is $48 million over 4 years.
Yeah.
Not 20 something, 48. And in fact, Cam Ward got that from the Tennessee Titans, and he ended up with $32 million signing bonus.
Jeez.
Now, the number 32 pick, there's 32 teams, so the last pick was an offensive tackle, Josh Simons, that went to the Kansas City Chiefs, and he signed for $14.7 million. I think that was a 3-year deal, Pete, but $7.3 million signing bonus. So just as Pete said, these are big numbers and they'll keep getting bigger, but so will the college numbers keep getting bigger. And I think 10X Wealth, our wealth management firm, folks, I think we'll be knocking on the doors of some of these guys, because in the past, it used to be they'd make, 600,000, 800,000, blah, blah, blah. Now, when these guys are talking generational wealth, wow, just wow. And that's not the 5th-year contract, folks, because they become free agents after that. And the 5th-year contract, those are the ones you see that are 200 mil, 300 mil, and so forth.
It's gotten out of control. The one thing that's really interesting, John, is, and it's starting to happen, is these big donors, right, are getting pretty ticked off about one thing. The kid takes the money and then he runs the next year to somewhere else. And then they take the money and run to somewhere. And a lot of these guys are getting pretty frustrated by that. Now, I don't know how they stop it other than stop giving them money, but it is something.
I know how.
I
know how.
How?
Sign them to a contract.
Right.
Don't do it as an NIL. Do it as a 3-year contract,
right,
or whatever. So you sign the kid after his freshman year, like that quarterback for Washington, like you were talking about, Pete,
Yep.
with me. You sign that kid and you say, okay, here's $5 million, and I've got $10 million more behind it. I want you to sign a 3-year deal. And the only thing that breaks it is if you go to pros.
Mm-hmm.
If you try to go into the portal again, you can't.
Right.
Because we have a contract, a legally binding contract. And you could do that. We'll see if teams start doing that, Pete, because otherwise you just lose them after a year.
Yeah.
To see who the next highest bidder is for Levitt.
Yeah.
Or for, the kid Raiola at Nebraska or whatever. They'll just keep hopping.
Yeah, these guys are not happy about it, I can tell you that. And that is going to be an issue. And I think you're right. I mean, there's got to be some way that they can do that. Maybe that is the way, but it's going to have to happen, or these guys are going to finally just start saying no, and that's the last thing these teams and schools need is somebody to say no who's been so generous in the past. But they're going to have to lock them up, John. Otherwise, these guys, I think, are going to start saying, I'm out. I'm no longer going to do this whole thing.
Well, thank you for joining us today, folks. As always, we appreciate you joining us here on the Rebel's Edge. Feel free to repost some of our information that we're going to be putting out, some of the short videos and so forth. He is at Pete Najarian on Twitter, and I am at Jon, Jon. My dad, our dad, was John, so I'm Jon Najarian. And we'll be back, what time exactly tomorrow, Pete?
1 p.m. Eastern, and you know what? We get to break down all the stuff that's going on in college and NFL still again over there. So that should be pretty fun tomorrow.